Welcome to the Mearns History Group video channel. So where is Mearns? Newton Mearns, to give it its full name, is a suburban area 7 miles south of Glasgow. At one time, not all that long ago, it was just a quiet rural village. Massive housing development started in the late 1950s and have continued to do so ever since, changing the face of the area forever. In our videos, Mearns History Group will tell you something of what life used to be like in Newton Mearns.
When you look at Newton Mearns today, with its huge areas of housing, it's hard to believe. Not so very long ago, this was all farmland. At one time, all the Mearns villagers had the right to graze cattle on the common ground that belonged to the parish. This community, as it was known, was the moorland area around the Black Loch and the Brother Loch. These lochs also served as a good watering area in the days of the cattle drovers.
Mearns was also the centre of where many of the drove roads came through from the places like Falkirk going to Ayrshire. When the people drove their cattle, they also rested them in Mearns because of the proximity of the different water at night, and the drovers stayed there. And there are still traces up towards the moor of the drove roads that these people used.
Over the years since then, farming became more sophisticated, with many small farms becoming established.
The proximity of Glasgow made it possible for a farmer to milk his cattle and have the milk sent in by horse and cart and a milkman into Glasgow, either in the form of milk or butter, or even in these days what they called sour milk, which was left after the making of the butter.
With such a ready market on its doorstep, farming in Newton Mearns prospered and continued to do so for many years. It's difficult today to imagine Newton Mearns as a country village. This map includes the area in the mid-60s. Even then there was little new housing. The area between the Ayr Road and the Stewarton Road was still open countryside. Earlier still, in the late 1920s, there was actually over 70 farms in the Mearns parish. Today they've all nearly vanished, swallowed up by housing. But there are still a few residents left who had farms or farming connections.
Father got married in 1922 and took over the tenancy of Starngarter, and I was 6 years born there, and we left 1937, the 28th of May, and moved to Maidenhill, which was a larger and better farm, but they were both dairy farms. Well, you were up at 5:30, and the horses had to get fed, the cows were to get fed and milked, and then the byre was to be cleaned out with a bar and a shovel. Everything in 4 legs was fed before that nether place Horn went. But I had 3 sisters and a brother that helped. And then off to school. But when I left school, I was at home from June to January, and then on the 10th of January I started with Robert Johnson as an apprentice joiner. So I was there for 6.5 years, and my brother got married, and I come back home to work, and I've been on the farm ever since. But it was all horsepower in those days. I mean, 4-legged power, horsepower, no HP. And then it was a long day if you were harrowing or ploughing or something. You walked miles literally.
Well, of course, I was born in the farming community in the countryside there at Mearns and all the farms round about me. So it was I loved the horses, so I would go. I invited myself to go down to Burnhouse Farm. That was Reed's farm. That was near the old castle. And I built up a relationship there with the Reed farm, and I would come home from school, throw my bag in, and off I would go down to the farm. People would even say to my mother, "Where is he?" "Oh, he'll be down at the farm." And you know, I worked with I loved the animals. I worked with them, and at 10 years of age, I was milking cows.
I started when I left the school at 15. And I've been here on the other place ever since. Well, 5:15, 5:30 a.m. was generally milking time. That was when you started the milking in the morning, and you'd put two to 3 hours work, and then half an hour or so for your breakfast, and then it was your outside work. Or working with stock, whatever happened to be necessary, right to midday, and then you'd an hour for your dinner, and then the milking time afternoon was 4 p.m. and that was you to brown about 5:36. That was your day, unless sometimes in the summer, sometimes the likes of summertime or harvest time, you had a bit of working late and 8. Well, whereas it was 8 o'clock, whereas it was nearer 10. My farming connection was through my mother. My mother was a clerk who was in Nether Malletshire Farm, and she was one of 4 daughters, and she married my father in 1906, and her father had the Malletshire Farm, and they had milk farm, and he also bought and sold horses and walked these horses to markets anywhere between Ayr and Falkirk.
3:30, 4 o'clock finished in school, and I would go up to Maidenhill Farm and got quite involved there with the preparation of the milk. The Maidenhill Farm, they not only produced the milk, but they retailed the milk as well. So we had to cool the milk, bottle it, and prepare it into its crates for delivery the next morning. But the highlight of my goings up and down to Maidenhill Farm was one of the cattle shows. I think it must have been about 1937. The cattle show was held over at Langrig, just behind Mearnskirk Hospital. And we had about 20 cows. I say we, I mean Maidenhill Farm, for show that day, and we won. We had the champion cow, and Robert Lyside's father said to me, Dovitt, he always called me Dovitt, he said, "How would you like to lead the champion?" The champion always led the final walk round the ring with at the end, and I said, "Oh, I'd love that." And there I was leading the champion cow. But further to that, the further to that was I walked the cow home then, and we went up the right of way through the grounds of Fosside, which was Sir Wallace Fairweather's big house there. He wasn't enamoured really when the cows started to leave their pats all over, but it was a right of way, so we got taken the cow, and that saved us going round the road. But when we got back to the farm, and Mr. Rayside gave me £0.50, that was a lot of money.
In the middle of the 20s and that, there was a great drive to shut down many of the 7 public houses in Mearns, and eventually, after the inns at the cross, one of the last ones to go, we were left only with the Malletshire inns up at the Ayr Road at Malletshire, and it was frequented quite regularly by all the farmers round there.
Roger Gill, I was telling you about him last night. He was a regular at the Malletshire, and he always maintained if he died, he would like to do it on the way home from the Malletshire. And it was the day of Father's funeral. He died at Maybole and had to come up to the old kirk. And it was November, 26th November. And what a day of wind and rain it was. And Roger had been at the Malletshire. And at that lay-by, just at Foreside, something had struck the concrete post on this side of the road, and the fence was down. But it was known for Roger, when he quit the Malletshire, he would lean on the fence and relieve himself, which he did, but there was no fence there. And they rolled down the bank and they got him dead, either the next morning or late that night. He never got home. He got his wish. He died coming for the Malletshire.
I hope you've enjoyed this film. Look out for more productions from the Mearns History Group.